Israel has said that it has circled a date in the calendar for the Rafah operation, although US says it has not been briefed on the matter. My colleague Julia Chapman is in London. She gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Julia, tough road ahead for both parties?
That's right. Despite pressure not to send troops into Rafah, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the date is set for a ground offensive there, although he hasn't made that date public. It comes as no progress has been made yet at the ongoing talks on a ceasefire in Cairo. After rejecting Israel's earlier proposal, Hamas now says that a new proposal has again failed to address Palestinian demands.
I received a detailed report on the talks in Cairo. We are constantly working to achieve our goals. First and foremost, the release of all our hostages and achieving a complete victory over Hamas. This victory requires entry into Rafah and the elimination of the terrorist battalions there. It will happen. There is a date.
Talks, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that a date has been set for entry into Rafah and the elimination of terrorist battalions.
I received a detailed report on the talks in Cairo. We are constantly working to achieve our goals. First and foremost, the release of all our hostages and achieving a complete victory over Hamas. This victory requires entry into Rafah and the elimination of the terrorist battalions there. It will happen. There is a date.
Rafah, bordering Egypt, is Gaza's last refuge for displaced Palestinians. Over 1.3 million people have taken shelter in Rafah as the conflict lingers on. Hamas on Tuesday rejected Israel's fresh ceasefire proposal, saying that it does not meet any of the demands of the Palestinians. However, added it would study the proposal further. Israel and Hamas sent teams to Egypt on Sunday for talks that included Qatari and Egyptian mediators, as well as CIA Director William Burns. Reacting to Israel's announcement on Rafah, United States said it has not been briefed about the same. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller told reporters at a regular news briefing that Washington does not want to see a full-scale Rafah operation. Bureau Report, DD India.
With more on this, DD India's Alex Kadier sent us this report from Tel Aviv.
Now, we know from the last conversation last week between the US and Israeli officials in Washington, that virtual call, I should say, that took place, that the United States thinks that the evacuation of civilians in Rafah, we know that more than 1 million Palestinians from Gaza have sought refuge there because it had been previously designated a safe area by the IDF. That evacuation of civilians has to happen according to the United States. Israel has also said it is putting plans in place to evacuate those civilians. Now, the Israeli officials in that meeting said the evacuation will take 4 weeks. The US officials said it will take 4 months. Now, speaking to Israeli military sources just in the last couple of days, they think the timeline will be somewhere in the middle, somewhere around 2 to 3 months to evacuate those 1 million people. But the real question is, where can they go? We know that the evacuation of Israeli troops, or the withdrawal of Israeli troops from central Gaza in the last 48 hours has meant some people are returning to Khan Yunis in the middle of the Gaza Strip. But Khan Yunis is all but destroyed, and people say they can't find their homes because their street simply doesn't exist anymore. One woman saying that she cannot reach her apartment because the staircase has been completely destroyed as well. So clearly that operation in Rafah looming. It will be a few months perhaps before it begins, but again, a lot of pressure from the US to make sure that if it does happen, harm to civilians has to be minimized.